Hello! Today's Total Soccer Show is sponsored by SeatGeek. Download the SeatGeek app, enter promo code TSS, and you'll get $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. That promo code to enter is TSS for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's ready to talk about things other than US soccer, at least to some degree. Yeah. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello, for like at least the first 30 minutes of the show.
Yeah.
I think,
so,
right? Maybe?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So today's show, we're going to talk some Premier League.
Yep.
It's the weekend review. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm doing it. Thumbs up, thumbs down. But we're also going to talk a little Major League Soccer. It was the, penultimate weekend is how they were classifying it. We're going to talk Jermaine Jones' Instagram, which might be the best thing that happened in MLS this weekend in many ways. Or the most intriguing thing.
Yeah.
Fair?
I think both of those are accurate.
Yeah.
You could have gone either way.
Talk a little bit Liga MX, maybe a certain midfielder who plays for Monterrey. If you don't know who we're talking about, definitely stick around because he may be the future of the US men's national team.
This is true.
NWSL Championship game and the violence that took place within.
Yeah.
And sort of an outlier for us, but we're going to talk Milan derby because a lot happened there.
Yeah, as you do.
I think I just summarised the whole show.
I think, pretty much we've gone through all of it.
Should we start in the Premier League though?
Why not?
Because it's back. First of all, did it feel weird watching the Premier League after the sort of week of World Cup morning that we've had?
It did, because it still doesn't quite feel like, I'm not going to lie, it really is like 5% less exciting to me.
Right.
Just because there is that element, like, it ends in a World Cup at the end of the season, but not for us.
Yep.
So there's still it's still, again, I compared it to breaking up with a boy or girlfriend, whatever you want to go with. It still feels that way, of like, like World Cup. Oh, there's that ad for the World Cup. We talked about this tonight when there's like all the Alexi Lalas ads with like, we are united, we are a team. And it's like, I know what you're trying to advertise for.
Yeah, a lot of stuff is geared towards US being at Russia 2018, right? And there was also, I just had this feeling that like, really Premier League? You're not going to give me another week to get over this?
Yeah.
Like you're back a little too soon.
Yes. It probably didn't help that I was, just watching the game at 7:45 in the morning while eating ice cream and drinking whiskey. Is that not what you're supposed to do?
No.
That's official breakup material, no?
You also missed kickoff by 15 minutes, I think.
Yeah, that's what you did. That's how it works in my house.
I missed the whole game to get it on DVR.
The dog was laying on the remote, so that was part of the problem. The big dog, not the little dog.
Well, so where do you want to start with that thumbs up, thumbs down in the Premier League? I've been talking a lot, so I invite you to go first.
I'm going to start with Man City.
Oh, then let me start with Man City.
All right.
I'm sorry, because
you raised my hopes and then dashed them quite expertly.
I did. I'm good at it. Well, because I know that you have a lot of notes on Man City. I just want to say thumbs down to reading Jeff Cameron's journal entries for this week.
Oh, I haven't. Wait, does he keep a diary? Or is this a thing?
I don't know.
Or are you just joking?
If he does, I'm not sure I want to read it because he spent last Friday watching his international teammates with a glorious 4-0 win that he wasn't involved in, and we saw that he was not thrilled about it, right? Then he spent Tuesday watching his team lose and not go to the World Cup, and he was not involved, and he looked really mad about it. And he spent the weekend playing first centre midfield and then right back for Stoke City as they were dismantled 7-2 by Manchester City. And I'm going to tell you this, Jeff Cameron, I know it's tough, right? No one on the Stoke City team covered themselves in glory. He was kind of involved in a lot of those goals.
He was, but
in terms of being passive.
Well, see, but there were times also when I felt like he was like stepping out to try to meet something, and then it was just like an overwhelming number of City players getting forward and him having no help. So there were times when he is like, either he's the last player in the shot when the ball goes in, or it's him who looks like he's lost his man. Because I went back and watched, I was like, ooh, that looks bad. But then it was like, he loses one man because he's trying to track another one who has the ball because no one else is doing it.
And to be clear, I'm not blaming Jeff Cameron for this loss at all, but I'm just saying it looked an unpleasant experience for everybody on the Stoke City team.
So you're saying thumbs down to Jeff Cameron for being solely responsible for the 7-2
I'm
loss.
saying thumbs down to reading Jeff Cameron's journal entries for this week.
I'm going to say thumbs down to Manchester City for being so likable. I don't like it. As a Man United fan. Yeah. I mean, because
why are they likable?
For two reasons. Number one, Benjamin Mendy, who will not stop being adorable on Instagram and Twitter.
Even though he's injured. I guess he has more time for his social media, right?
I don't know. There's something about, I guess he like calls himself the Shark, or he's been labeled the Shark, but he has an inflatable shark that he carries around with him that appears in the Man City locker room all the time. So
like from the Super Bowl?
I don't know what it is, but but then like he filmed himself being a shark on Twitter. Like he had like the hand on top of his head, and he's just a very goofy, likable character, and I think he's helped unite the team. But then if you look at Man City, Of the 7 goals, I think 6 of them ended with one player pointing at another player, which is always the soccer sign for like, that's all you, man.
Did you read Adam Hurrey's Twitter?
No.
So you know Adam Hurrey, football cliches. He said, I think most titles are won by teams who point at each other when they score. And he had photos of Manchester City after their goals against Stoke.
But they always do
he's
it.
Right.
And it's a big percentage is because I think they also have like the most FIFA goals I've ever seen from an actual team. You know the goals where you like dribble down, you both pull the keeper out, then you square to the guy who's now wide open and he just passes into the net.
I've seen people play against me and do that. Put it that way.
Exactly. They have so many of those. And they even like take it one step further where they're like dribble down the line, bring the keeper out, square it to the other guy, but then he's going to square it to somebody else just because why not?
So, okay, I know you're kind of joking with that point, but that genuinely is true. And I think the reason you can do that, as I understand FIFA, like you deliberately like pull people out of position, pull people towards you and then move the ball on, right? That's what I've seen people do against me when I play a FIFA video game. Man City have an overwhelming sort of amount of players that stretch you wide and stretch you all over the place, and that's why they're actually able to do that in real life. We've hit on a thing, Man City are sort of a top-level FIFA video game player in real life.
Yeah, and with that in mind, when you have those top-level players, you tend to break records, and I'm going to say also thumbs up to Kevin De Bruyne for, I'm going to preemptively say this season, smashing the single-season assist record.
Right.
And if they had MLS assists counted, like the assist before the assist, if it was a critical play, he would absolutely destroy it.
Oh, because he put the pass through, Kyle Walker did I want to call it an underlap, because he was the right back, I think, but he sort of ran inside the channel as opposed to outside. Yeah, and De Bruyne put the brilliant ball in to find him, and then Walker squares for Jesus for, I believe, the first goal.
Right.
Yeah? Jeff Cameron had a good view of that as Kyle Walker ran past him.
There's that one, but then there's the one that Leroy Sané assists to Raheem Sterling. That one comes about from like the no-look, splitting 3 defenders ball from Kevin De Bruyne. Then he has 2 straight-up assists as well in this game.
On FIFA, isn't there a through ball button?
Yep.
So he has mastered He's mastered the Y button.
Yep. He certainly has.
He has a Y in his second name for no good reason, right? It should be Kevin De Bruyne, but for some reason it's Kevin De Bruyne.
Well, now you know why.
That's what that Y is for.
I think it's because it's De Bruyne or whatever it actually is, but we're not going to worry about that.
It's De Bruyne through baller.
But his nice. But his ability to like pick that pass out, it again makes Man City incredibly fun to watch. So thumbs up to them for that. Thumbs down to Stoke, my final one for this game, for poking the bear.
For what?
Because, poking the bear because Man City went up 3-0. Then it was 3-2, and Stoke scored 2 goals and pulled it back.
I didn't know it was that close.
And then it finished 7-2. So I feel like basically City were like, oh, really? You're going to do this? We're happy to just let it be 3-0, but you got to score 2 goals, 4 more for you.
You're not going to roll over?
Enjoy this. Enjoy what happens. Yes.
Okay, so Man City, top of the Premier League by 2 points.
Yes.
And the reason is, thumbs down from me to Jose Mourinho for ruining the Kenny Dalglish party.
All right.
So
you're not wrong.
It was Liverpool hosting Man United. They were dedicating the Kenny Dalglish stand to the legend Kenny Dalglish. Everyone was there for a good, exciting, like, blood and thunder derby, Liverpool-Man United. And Jose Mourinho went and did his sort of tactical masterclass thing, put out the classic 4-2-3-1 Jose Mourinho, wingers track back. It was a thing that I thought was out of style. Turns out it still works, at least for 0-0 draws.
I mean, yeah, when you keep all your fullbacks back so that you don't have any overlaps and you keep everybody behind the ball, it tends to work.
That's the world we're living in. Man City are doing underlaps. They're so far advanced in their fullbacks pushing forward. And Man United are refusing to send their fullbacks forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you believe Jose Mourinho, which I'm not sure I do because he tends to kind of make outrageous claims in the post-match interviews because he knows...
To direct attention, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think maybe part of that plays into him coming out and saying he's not going to finish his career at Manchester United. That seems like a weird thing to say right about now.
He's also youngish, right? So why would you expect to finish
He's
your
looking
career?
for that US job.
Yeah.
He's not, unfortunately. But he came out afterwards and said basically that he blamed Liverpool for a lack of an exciting game because Liverpool didn't dedicate enough attackers into the game to try to win it, and that was his plan all along.
I saw this post-match thing. He was saying that Liverpool have this 4-3-3, right? And in the central midfield, it's Henderson, Wijnaldum, and Emre Can. And he said he was waiting for Jurgen Klopp to make an attacking sub and to take out one of those midfielders and put in like Sturridge or an extra striker, and that was when he was going to open things up. So he's redirected the blame to say it's Jurgen Klopp's fault for not completely opening up so I could counter-attack him like I wanted to.
Yeah, it's like if you imagine there were being like a drag race and you just refusing to like to start your engine while your opponent is going until you wait like 7 hours and they run out of gas, and you're like, look, I was ready to go, but he ran out of gas, and it's really a lack of preparation on his fault. It's like, no, they were ready for a while there. You maybe could have countered a few times, but I think in the end, that's a point Jose Mourinho will be okay with, certainly.
Yeah, so it's weird, right? I looked at it as there's a title race, but we're only 8 games in, but there's a title race, and they were neck and neck with Man City, and now they're 2 points behind.
Yeah.
But I guess Mourinho would look at it as we could have done a silly thing and opened up against Liverpool, and they would have sort of found the holes in our defence.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that. I was smart. I kept the shop closed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do think that's the frustrating aspect of having Mourinho as the head coach of a major team, both for the fans of that major team and for neutrals. That you want to see Man United, Liverpool. You want it to see exciting fireworks and crazy goals and crazy moments.
Yep.
And with Jose Mourinho, you're never going to get that. So even if you can understand the practicality of that, it still probably deserves a thumbs down because it takes away some of the spectacle in the end.
Can we say thumbs up to Jurgen Klopp for not falling into the trap? Because wasn't there also a post-match interview where Klopp said, yeah, I knew he wanted me to throw some extra numbers forward, and that's when they would sort of hit us on the big counter, and I just didn't do it. And I think maybe that's Klopp learning a lesson about the Premier League in some ways.
Yeah, and then adding in those little and we probably should have had a penalty, and maybe Lukaku should have been sent off.
Yeah.
So, in the end, it was all against us. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see Man United, Man City.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I still think I know a degree of homerism here, but I feel like if there's a manager who can figure out how to shut down the overlapping fullbacks and the aggressive play of the fullbacks of Man City, it would be Jose Mourinho, but that might just mean he sits everybody behind the ball and tries to frustrate.
4-2-3-1, send them out and hold them back.
And I don't mean any disrespect to Liverpool, but I can say this confidently because they are not top of the table right now with a goal difference of plus 7,000 or whatever Man City have. But I think you can't do what you did to Liverpool to Man City because they just have so many people bombing into the attack, whereas Liverpool were, by Jurgen Klopp's own admission, a little bit more conservative in how many numbers they committed. I think City will not be that conservative, and I think they don't need to be.
Guardiola never has been, right? But it's been his undoing. So maybe let's look ahead. Have we already had a Manchester derby this season?
We have not.
We have not. All right.
As far as I know, no, we have not. I feel like that would have been more of a selling point.
Yeah. All right. One thing I want to say is, I think a while back someone asked us, who's your dream coach? If all options are on the table for the United States, and I went Jose Mourinho for decisions like this, where you could see he has tactically planned for this game, and he's got sort of moves and counter moves. And if Jurgen Klopp does this, then I'll do that. He's really thought through all the game scenarios.
Yeah.
And the last 2 coaches the US has had, Jurgen Klinsmann and now Bruce Arena, I think we can safely say, do not do that, right? Bruce Arena was all right, same 11-1.
Yeah.
Go back out in the same shape. Doesn't matter what Trinidad are. We'll just do exactly the same thing that we just did.
Yeah.
Jose Mourinho is a guy who plans for every game, has a tactical plan. I'm not saying it has to be Jose Mourinho, the next US coach, because it's not realistic, but somebody who does that. And this is the advantage to having a coach who does this kind of thing, is you get a point when you need it.
I mean, that's the thing. And listeners, if you can't see, I say if you can't see, you cannot see. I'm grimacing through most of that because the reality is, You're right, and the post-match press conference we got and a lot of the coverage we got of Man United in this game would be what you would get with Jose Mourinho as the head coach of the U.S. national team in a hypothetical world where he goes to Trinidad. It's a week in Trinidad. It's a Trinidad B squad. Somehow he only comes out of that with a 0-0 draw. Oh, come on, we got to be doing better than that. But those are the headlines.
In this scenario, are we going to the World Cup?
That's the thing, though, is that, yes, it's ugly, and it would have come out of it being but shouldn't we be doing more? Shouldn't we be pushing ourselves? Shouldn't we be winning handily? And instead it's no, we should be getting a 0-0 draw and getting the point and going to the World Cup. So it's you're absolutely right that is the sort of manager that I think the United States needs, even if it means it will be just as frustrating.
A tactical planner.
Actually, it will not be just as frustrating. It will be slightly frustrating, but less heartbreaking, would be my guess.
And if we didn't mention the score, then you could probably guess that it finished 0-0 at Anfield. Can I go thumbs up for Troy Deeney for going on Premier League Tonight, which is a BT Sports in England show, after Arsenal's 2-1 defeat to Troy Deeney's Watford. And also, I think on Match of the Day, he also said roughly the same thing.
In just the post-match interview, I'm big and ugly and I'll do the work they don't like doing in regards to Arsenal.
In a beautiful West Midlands accent.
It was pretty good.
It reminded me of home.
Yeah, and there's a scene there's a real topical one, in The Waterboy, the Adam Sandler movie, where the place kicker, who I believe is D'Angelo Barksdale from The Wire.
Really?
He's looking for the person he's going to do the onside kick to, and I won't curse, but he's basically that's the one. That's the guy. And I've never heard an actual professional athlete make that sort of declaration. But he did that here. Troy Deeney was basically like, I go out and I find a player and I pick on them.
Yep.
And if they don't respond, then I know like I can do what I want in this game.
This is what he said. He said first of all, he said Arsenal lack cojones, and I think English people speak so little Spanish that you can sort of say that on English television because no one knows what it means.
I guarantee you, some English pundit was like, "What are cojones?"
And he says that he goes on and like he'll just like go into the first guy, see what happens. He said he jumped with Mertesacker, and Mertesacker didn't even jump, and he was like, "All right, this is my game.
Game on."
And then what he so he scores the equalising penalty, Troy Deeney, after coming off the bench, and then he has a big role, I would say, in Tom Cleverley's winner for Watford, because I've forgotten who slips the ball in, but there's a ball it deflects, right? And Mertesacker and Cech have it covered between them, but Troy Deeney just like throws a random, he almost like picks up his own leg and throws it in there.
Kind of. But it's impressive because you're absolutely right that he gets on the end of the ball and like basically keeps it alive even if he falls over.
Yeah, he doesn't know where that ball's going, right? But he knows that it's not going to pit a Cech, so it just keeps the ball alive.
But the thing that I kept looking for was to see if Cech or Mertesacker or anybody complained, because it did like for a half second look like he maybe knocks Cech out of the way or knocks the ball out of the hands. Nobody does, because he just gets to it cleanly, and that's probably the most frustrating thing if you're an Arsenal player, is that it's just like, I want something to be mad about. But it was a completely clean play. He just kind of wanted it more.
It's worth remembering, he is big and ugly, and like he said, he's not as technical. But, you know, a couple of plays earlier, he sort of, I think he won the ball back through effort and then nutmegged Hector Bellerin.
Yep.
So he can play a little bit, at least, right? Yeah, so Watford win 2-1. Should we talk about the penalty? Because it seems controversial. Arsene Wenger called it scandalous. It was Hector Bellerin, Bellerin or Bellerin? I don't know. Hector on Richarlison, Watford's Brazilian attacking midfielder / winger. It didn't look like a lot of contact, but Arsenal fans will be mad about this. I think there was just enough for Richarlison to go down.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely no foot to foot. It's definitely no contact there. It looks
there's no
like,
trip, right?
It looks like maybe there's a little bit of knee-to-knee contact.
That's what I would say.
Theoretically could be enough to send the player to the ground. Again, I think
running that pace, I think maybe yes.
Yeah, Danny Mills, I think, summed it up best. Was just like, maybe there's contact, but it's certainly not scandalous. Like,
were you watching BBC Match of the Day?
Yes.
That was Danny Murphy.
Danny Murphy, excuse me. I always go Danny Mills.
They're both Danny skinheads who used to play for England, but not all the time.
There you go. Interchangeable. Yeah, but I think he said, like, there is contact. It's probably not a penalty, but it's not a scandalous decision.
There we go.
That's a fair
summary. It's not simulation because there was contact, right? So you've got a kernel of truth, which to base it on, right?
That was not the only upset in the Premier League, though. I would say thumbs up to the return of the Wilf. Wilfried Zaha comes back for Crystal Palace. They get their first goal of the season. They get their first win of the season, a 2-1 victory over Chelsea. That's a big one.
I've got thumbs up to Cesar Azpilicueta for getting Crystal Palace's goal scoring going. So the Palace's first goal of the season is an Azpilicueta own goal.
I love that Johan Cabaye really tried to aggressively claim that one. No, sir. That's definitely an own goal.
I didn't look at the actual sheet. Like, did it go down as Cabaye or Azpilicueta? I'm giving it to Azpilicueta.
I think it was initially listed as a Johan Cabaye one, and then it was one of those like, nope, changed to own goal, and rightfully so.
So Crystal Palace beat Chelsea 2-1 in a really big surprise. Like, no one expected. We were joking the other day that Roy Hodgson took this job at the absolute worst time because it was Man United, Man City, Chelsea, Monstars, etc.
That's how it always goes.
He somehow won this one. He's going to beat the Monstars as well.
Yeah, I mean, he might. He gets the player's power back, and that's all it takes.
Sorry, I interrupted. You were saying something about
it. Was basically just Wilfried Zaha. That, I mean, he gets credit for returning. I think you pointed out, or maybe somebody else pointed out, and then you told me that basically Crystal Palace, with their lack of striking options,
Benteke's injured, right?
Went with two strikers in the form of Wilfried Zaha and Andros Townsend. Yep, usually playing out wide.
Two wingers up front, and here's the thing they did. No, this was me. Noticed this. Just getting the team sheet because I remembered. They don't have a striker. I remember they tried Sacco there a while back, and it didn't quite work out. So they went with Townsend and Zaha, two wingers up front. But then their wide midfielders were a little more narrow. I think it was James MacArthur, who's more of a central midfielder, and Jeffrey Schloop. I think he's a winger, but also
that sounds made up.
A left back. No, it's his real name.
You made that name up.
He's also a left back. So
Jeffrey
basically,
Schloop.
He had slightly more defensive players in the actual out wide positions, but then the two forwards were wingers. And I think there might be a little bit of tactical genius / desperation from Roy Hodgson there, and it 100% worked out.
I'm going to say more desperation than genius.
Can we talk about how great Zaha was, though? He was just dribbling at Chelsea the whole time, and they looked scared all the time.
Yeah, and I think it's because maybe they just were not expecting a Crystal Palace player to come at them with that level of confidence. Right. And I think maybe they caught him on the worst possible day, which is returning, having that play. Injury, right? Yeah, and essentially really having something to prove, trying to probably be the one who is the sort of savior for Crystal Palace since they have struggled so much.
I remember their first game of the season. I can't remember who Crystal Palace lost to, but it wasn't good.
Yeah.
De Boer claimed that the pieces were coming. We played really well, but we lost. The only player that looked dangerous was Zaha, but I also know there was some weird disagreement between De Boer and Zaha because Zaha doesn't play possession football. No. He plays I'm going to dribble at you football, and there was going to be some sort of clash between those two, I think.
Yeah.
But now Roy Hodgson is like, Wilfred, big hug,
go do stuff.
Yeah, go do stuff.
Go run and do step overs and little flicks and try to beat people and maybe score goals and give us wins.
You got anything else in the Premier League? I've got one quick one.
I believe that's all I have from the Premier League.
All right, I think Tottenham Hotspur, thumbs up for getting the measurements of Wembley correct, finally. First league win at Wembley with a 1-0 win over Bournemouth. Christian Eriksen had it all measured out, took a ball in stride, bit of a stumble into some Bournemouth defenders, then a beautiful sort of side foot into the far corner.
And I'm going to say thumbs down to Bournemouth for not having Emerson Hyndman in the 18, the matchday squad.
There?
No, if he had been, maybe it's not a loss. That's all I'm saying. Get him in there.
Yeah, get him in there. It's time, right?
I think so.
Why isn't the Premier League trying harder to help the US national team get better?
It's very selfish.
Weird, right?
It really is.
It's very, very strange.
You think they'd have more of a vested interest for some unknown reason.
All right, later on, we're going to talk Jermaine Jones' comments on his Instagram Live, excuse me. But first, today's show is sponsored by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is today's sponsor because buying tickets to sports and concerts can be complicated, but there's a better, simpler way to buy, and it is with SeatGeek. 2 taps on your phone, you can buy or sell a ticket.
That is true. And if you're looking for any suggestions for tickets, if you happen to live in the Pacific Northwest, specifically in I feel like I always mispronounce it, and I saw a bumper sticker that pronounces it properly. Oregon, I think, is maybe what you're supposed to go. Like Oregon, I think, is what you're supposed to pronounce it as, not like Oregon or whatever.
Oh, really?
But anyway, if you live in that state...
I feel like you should know, being American.
It's a big place, Daryl. There are lots of people who say lots of things about lots of places.
I think it's oregano, I'm pretty sure.
That's it. That's definitely it. It's very spicy. I think you could go with Vancouver Whitecaps at Portland Timbers on the final day of the season. That's at Providence Park. There are tickets available via SeatGeek. That is basically the battle to decide who finishes top of the Western Conference.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. And then, obviously you can use it for any other playoff push game you wanted to go to, or the playoffs. I believe Atlanta United already have tickets on sale for the final.
Yeah, how is that working? Is it an Atlanta United fan is selling their tickets
I would assume
to MLS Cup? Is that a listing where they've got season tickets and they know they've got reserve tickets if Atlanta get to the final?
I'm assuming so, but given that Atlanta are currently 4th in the Eastern Conference, some other teams would have to lose, or Atlanta would have to do some winning for them to be hosting MLS Cup 2017. But we shall see.
I'm going to recommend you don't buy those Atlanta tickets on SeatGeek. There are lots of other events that are definitely happening. Mm-hmm. I'll eat those words if it comes around.
I believe they're on sale for more than $600. Yeah, I'd say hold off. Hold off.
Hold off for those.
The Vancouver Portland tickets, much more reasonable, especially by comparison.
And the game's definitely happening, so there's that.
And they can be made even more reasonable, Daryl Grove.
They certainly can. You can get $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. You download the SeatGeek app, click the settings tab, enter promo code TSS. That's promo code TSS for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. And the customary thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's show.
You beat me to it. Thank you to SeatGeek, and thank you to Jermaine Jones for making things interesting, especially for LA Galaxy fans, because they haven't had much to be interested in with their current team.
This is true.
What, second bottom in the West, or maybe bottom in the West? I forget which one. Either way.
I think bottom, yeah. Colorado Rapids are second bottom.
He made things interesting this weekend.
He did. I want to first say thumbs up to Robert Meinhold, because Jermaine Jones put out this video on Instagram, which we're going to talk about, and it got a lot of people's attention. But Instagram Live is weird, right? Like, it kind of disappears afterwards unless the person chooses to make it available. Mm-hmm. And when I clicked it, I instead got a video of Jermaine Jones's kids dancing around.
Yep.
Because I think he'd moved on to the next video at that point, right? So, but Robert Meinhold downloaded the audio and sent it to us. So a huge 4 thumbs up, 2 from me, 2 from Taylor, to Robert for doing so.
I want to say my wife walked in as I was trying, because I had seen all these like, Jermaine Jones never change. My wife walked in while I was trying to find the video, and she was like, what are you watching? I was like, something with Jermaine Jones. I don't know what's happened. I was so confused. Like, his small child is dancing around. I don't know if this is going to lead to a problem. I don't know what's happening. And then I finally found the video.
And it's now, I think someone since has like ripped it and put it to YouTube. So we'll put a link in the show notes.
Sure.
Yeah, so you can definitely see what Jermaine Jones had to say. I would say skip to the end because it's like 15 minutes long and he repeats himself quite a lot.
I feel like the first 4 minutes and the last 4 minutes you could probably link up, and he pretty much, because he leads into bashing Jordan Morris, then he has kind of a random tangent for a while, and then he ends by really strongly criticizing Jordan Morris. Is maybe a better way to put it.
So should we briefly summarize what Jermaine Jones said so that we can talk about it?
Sure.
Right?
The basic notes I've got is that he starts off with he announced it on as he heard that Bruce Arena was no longer in a job. And his preference, he states, would be for the United States to not have another MLS coach. They need a strong name and personality. And he says, going with that, that when he started, most of the guys played in Europe, referring to when he started playing for the U.S. national team, and he thinks that's what the United States needs because you need to be able to fight for your spot every single day.
And now most of the guys play in Major League Soccer, right?
Yes.
So he essentially said he wants a strong coach, big name, that will essentially say, if you're going to just come back to MLS or not go abroad, I'm not going to pick you for the U.S. national team. That's a strong statement and a strong idea, but he kind of does lay out the case that when the US team was stronger, guys like Michael Bradley, Tim Howard, Carlos Bocanegra, Sasha Kleshton were all over in. I don't think he mentions Kleshton actually. We're all over in Europe. Chirundolo. They were over in Europe, and what that does is his argument was it kind of raises your level because even if you're not guaranteed a starting spot, you're always trying harder, always learning new things, always pushing yourself, and now everybody's either coming back to MLS, or we'll talk about this specifically, not leaving MLS. He thinks guys aren't being pushed enough, aren't getting that extra. I think he said get that extra bit out of you, and that's what's missing right now. And first of all, Jermaine Jones, I know he's German-American, so there's been a lot of the cliques people were talking about. I really think Jermaine Jones cares a lot about the US national team and the US soccer program.
I don't think you record a 15-minute video if you don't have strong feelings about the US national team. Yeah, and I think he genuinely does make some very good points. I think one of them, to your point about Major League Soccer maybe not preparing people quite so much, he says Major League Soccer system does not prepare players to play at the national team level. And he was saying that you could see MLS players who came into camp, they didn't know how to do stuff or how to play the ball or how to see the game as fast as people who played in Europe.
Yeah, and I could believe that. I could believe that.
And I think on the flip side, he was saying that also CONCACAF has just gotten better. And he was saying that, do you think your team is so intimidating to Costa Rica, who have a goalkeeper who plays for Madrid and a forward who plays for Arsenal or Arsenal London?
Arsenal London, as Germans call them, Chelsea London and so on.
And it's a fair point that, CONCACAF teams are getting better, not just because of Major League Soccer's influence, but because they're just getting better.
They're playing for European teams, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so
Brian Ruiz is in Portugal, was in the Premier League.
Yeah, it doesn't carry as much weight to have a squad full of Major League Soccer players.
Can we get to that was big stuff that he said, right? But the big headline was that he sort of named names, or he named a name. And
he named a name,
And the name he named was Jordan Morris. He said that at Jurgen's request, he spoke to Jordan Morris when Jordan Morris was making that choice of whether to go to Werder Bremen, where he'd practiced, and they'd basically offered him a contract, or whether to stay with Major League Soccer. And Jordan Morris told Jermaine Jones on the phone, I kind of want to stay home. My dad is the doctor there at Seattle. He's the club doctor, right? And also, me and my girlfriend just got a dog.
My mom just bought me and my girlfriend a dog.
My mom just brought me and my girlfriend a dog.
Which somehow makes it worse in my mind.
And the look on Jermaine Jones' face, and bear in mind, this is 2 years later, so I can't imagine the actual look on his face when he heard it in the moment. And he was using that as an example of someone having the opportunity to go push themselves in Europe. He said people would kill for that, which they would, right? And not taking it.
Yeah. I mean, and I think to pause for a moment and say he also does a good job. Again, he does a very lawyerly I'm gonna cancel out some of your disagreements before you can get to them.
We're making it sound harsher than it is in many ways, right? Because it was much more reasoned on his part.
I mean, it was pretty harsh. It can be reasoned and harsh. But what I mean is that he says things like the natural rebuttal is where do you play again? Before you start. But I think his point is you go, you prove yourself in Europe, you prove that you belong at that standard, and then you earn the contract later on to get that big money deal back in Major League Soccer.
But he still didn't seem impressed that Michael Bradley and Josie Altidore came home so early, right? So maybe these are the two things I want to talk to you about are players going from MLS to Europe and big name players coming back too soon, right? So I don't count Jermaine Jones in this because he'd done his career. He was kind of on a downslope.
30. I think we figured out 32 or 33.
Yeah, when he came back in 2014. He'd had his time in Schalke with the Champions League. He was bouncing around Blackburn and Besiktas, and he was kind of you could see the slight downward spiral, right?
Blackburn being involved means downward spiral.
Eric Jensen's man. No.
Oh, he's renounced it. He's a Liverpool fan now.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Oh, because of the club being mismanaged?
I think that, and he was basically, there's no way for me to watch them ever. So I'll go with the team that I want to watch.
So here's the thing. Jermaine Jones persuaded me that the US national team really, really needs a majority of its players playing in Europe. If we have a majority roster made up of Major League Soccer players, I'm now convinced, just mostly from this Jermaine Jones speech and from the evidence of the Hex, that it's a problem if you have the majority of your roster from Major League Soccer, because Europe is the top level. Europe is where the best soccer is happening. Doesn't mean you can't be a good player and play in MLS, but if you're going to push it and be at like a sharp level, I think you need the majority of your players in Europe.
Well, I agree, and I think that's his point. I would add one little caveat, which is that I don't think it necessarily has to be Europe, given that we're about to talk about Jonathan Gonzalez. I think the point for me is that you push yourself and you challenge yourself, because to Jermaine Jones's point, he says if you compare a 25 or 26-year-old player in Major League Soccer with an 18 or 19-year-old in Europe, the 18 or 19-year-old is thinking differently already because they have to. And I do think that part of that is, again, to his point, that they're pushing themselves and they're challenging themselves, and they're not sort of being like, well, eventually, look at Paxton Pomykal, for example, at FC Dallas. We're going to talk about him. He's 17. But he is sort of like biding his time. And that's some of the reports we've gotten are like, well, when they sell some players, then he'll get some more minutes. And it's kind of being like, this is where I am right now. We'll see where I end up. And I think if you're Jermaine Jones at 17, that's not how it works. You are pushing and fighting every inch to get into that starting 11 as fast as you can.
All right, there's a caveat here, which is that I don't know if Paxton Pomykal has a separate passport, right? So Jones held up Christian Pulisic as this example. Or what does he? He doesn't call him Christian Pulisic.
Pulisic.
He holds him as this example of like what you can do if you go and push yourself. Christian Pulisic has that Croatian passport, so he was able to go to Europe and get a professional contract much earlier than Americans can. Because you have to, like, Haji Wright, I think, had to wait till he was 18. A lot of guys have to do that, right? That's why Josh Sargent can't officially sign with Bremen until he's 18. So there is that caveat that Pomykal kind of doesn't really have anywhere to go in the meantime.
No, right? I agree with that. I still think, though, that there is that argument of like, but then you really have to push yourself to try to get in there and be getting those consistent minutes, and also maybe not take those minutes for granted. And I think that is another point there, that it's like you become this sort of big name to the club in Major League Soccer.
Like Jordan Morris, right now.
You know you're going to play every single game. So if you have a bad game here, it's kind of the nature of Major League Soccer. If you have a bad run of form, you're still going to be in there in consideration. It's not like in Europe where if you have a bad couple games, you're probably getting dropped.
So Jordan Morris is a good example. Right now, he's a pretty big fish at Seattle. But if he goes over to a Bundesliga team, he's a small fish who suddenly has to learn new skills and like fight his way up, right? The other argument, I feel like it's crazy.
To clarify, we're harping on Jordan Morris because Jermaine Jones
did, it's also worth noting that this is what every other nation does, right? Brazil has a league. Their best players go to Europe. Liga MX has a league. We'll talk about it later. Liga MX is a really good league to watch based on the Monterrey Pachuca game we saw. Right? It's a high-quality standard of soccer, a lot of good players. Still, Chucky Lozano goes to Europe, right? It's the big move that everybody does. Every player that wants to better themselves goes to Europe. But a weird thing has happened with Major League Soccer where I almost think like Josie Altidore and Michael Bradley are the better example, where the better players come home for big money, and the younger players like Kellyn Acosta, it becomes harder for them to leave. And I think that's the big thing that we could change about Major League Soccer this year.
Can I interject just to add, I did feel like for as much praise as we're giving Jermaine Jones for speaking his mind and caring passionately about the team, it did feel like he wanted to go more into that territory of Josie Altidore, Michael Bradley.
But they're more his peers, right? So it's a little bit like...
I think so. And but I think that they are sort of again, I think he would distinguish himself from them as like, I was 32, I was bouncing around Europe. It was an obvious move for me. And also, I didn't want to play New England, but that's the way the coin flip went. So I feel like he did kind of stop short there, because I do think that is probably a thing that he takes issue with.
Definitely. And here's the thing. I remember when those deals happened and Bradley and Altidore came home, I remember saying, and I still believe, it's ultimately about players' happiness, right? If I'm making decisions for my life, I'm not necessarily thinking about what it does for the US national team. I'm thinking about, am I happy? Do I make... Michael Bradley was offered, I think, like 6 times more than his salary to go to Toronto, right? So you almost can't fault him for taking that deal if he wants to come home to North America and he wants to make big money, right? What I would argue is, it's on MLS. I think what needs to happen, this is my sort of manifesto for what needs to happen going forward. Major League Soccer needs to think, we are a selling league. We're going to sort of raise up young players and we're going to push them to go to Europe. And rather than making it complicated when a team comes to buy Kellyn Acosta or Darlington Nagbe and makes it really hard to like navigate all these things where you have to like talk to the club, you have to talk to the league, you have to figure out like allocation money. This is like, it's a headache to do, right? Major League Soccer should make that easier. They should accept lower bids than they're sort of holding out for. They should make it easy for players to go to Europe. Don't hold them back a year. And at the same time, I think it has to, the thing of like like offering $6.5 million a year to Josie Altidore when he's sort of over in Europe already. I think that maybe has to stop. I think MLS has to think about maybe, even though it's great marketing to have Josie in Major League Soccer, maybe don't make that offer to him so he's not tempted to come home.
But see, but I feel like now you've crossed over from a sort of like ways you could change the system into like, for the good of U.S. soccer, MLS, don't try to sign the biggest American talents you can.
Yes, I think you should sign these guys, like Bradley, for example. Let's say if Bradley carries on over there, right? Or no, say Christian Pulisic carries on, right? We should bring Christian Pulisic back to Major League Soccer when he's 35, right?
You mean to Major League Soccer?
Sorry, yeah, to Major League Soccer when he's 35. We should not be trying, even if he has like a downward spiral, should not be trying to bring him back because you know that you can put him on a poster and market him and do really well. And this is where the thing of like US Soccer and MLS and Soccer United Marketing, you know, the marketing board that they both, the marketing company that they both sort of share, that's where all that stuff becomes a problem because like they're happy to bring those guys back and sell tickets and not think about what's happening with the national team.
Yeah, I can see that, but I still think that is like a business operating out of emotion, and I don't think you're going to get Major League Soccer to do that. What I would say is that Jermaine Jones' point about like youngsters wanting to challenge themselves, I think that is more of the determinant factor there.
Right.
Because you and I are not going to go pro. I hate to break this to you. But so we have played in those games where we're like, we're not pros. Like, I missed that shot. I probably should have scored. Like, oh, shoot, I should have put in a better tackle. But that's the luxury you have when you're not trying to like continuously push yourself. But I do think that if you're a 17-year-old who wants to be the new Messi or the new Maradona or Pele or whatever, like it requires that drive of like, no, I'm not taking that money. No, I'm not doing this. I'm definitely going to go try to prove myself in the Bundesliga and maybe get to Madrid or Barcelona or Arsenal or whomever at some point. And it requires that individual dedication and focus in as much as it requires Major League Soccer not being like, well, we want $3.5 million instead of $3.2 million.
But can we go one step further and say, or one step farther, as Jermaine Jones would say, and have like a department of Major League Soccer that is in charge of getting our guys to Europe. Like someone who can liaise with Kellyn Acosta and say, all right, I think this could work for you and I've made some contacts for you and we're going to help try and get you set up over there. And we're going to accept bids and we're going to just make the whole thing easier for you to get over to Europe.
I think it would be good.
And then if Costa leaves, there's a spot in the team for Paxton Pomykal. So there's that as well.
I think it would be good to make it easier so it's less red tape. I do also think that that's an inhibiting obstacle. That like if you're a European club who has a little bit of money to spend and maybe time is of the essence, you're not looking at Major League Soccer, whereas I think there is good money, good value there. But
there is, yeah.
If you're Celtic and it's deadline day, you're not going to be like, oh, I remember what we went through with Nagby. No, thank you. So I do think the league could make it easier.
Yeah.
But they
sent us this giant stack of documents about the roster regulations and all that.
Yeah. That's not a great idea. But I also think that like there's a difference between being a league that is stable, that does sell on players, and being like a sell league. And I feel like what you're getting at is like they've just got people that are like, hey man, you heard about Kellyn Acosta? You should buy him. He's great.
But right now I think the league is more worried about like keeping its marketable stars. Do you remember the whole thing about like how Dempsey couldn't move for a couple of years because like, you know, they were knocking bids back?
Oh, yeah.
I think Landon Donovan could have gone to Everton, but I think there was a thing of MLS. I don't know this for sure. I think there was a thing of MLS wanting more money than Everton were willing to pay for like a guy like who's 29, 30. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of stuff that MLS could do better in terms of making it easier for players to leave the league and go over to Europe. And I think because we can't deny that MLS and US soccer are kind of in cahoots in terms of trying to grow the game in the United States, right?
I feel like you're one step away from like between the ages of 25 and 29, you are not allowed to play in Major League Soccer.
But you get what I'm saying? Like it's a mentality shift that could happen.
Yeah.
At MLS headquarters, that's kind of easy to do. It doesn't require like promotion relegation. It's at least a small step that MLS could take and be like, yes, we're going to try and make this happen and we'll work hand in hand with US soccer to do that.
And this is maybe I'm probably misrepresenting this, but see the problem is that they've already had other manifestos. That they've already had the we aim to be the best league in the world by 2020 or whatever.
What I'm saying is give that up. Aim to be a selling league. Aim to like help young US players make the best of their careers. These are mutually exclusive.
See, the thing I don't disagree with you, but I think that that's way harder than you think it is, and it shouldn't be. But it is
the change of mindset.
Not even the change of mindset, but actually changing it. Because then, if you're Don Garber and you're suddenly like, never mind, we are going to focus on like developing young talent to sell it on to bring in like more aging superstars. People are going to be like, well, that's not what you said before. Now you're flip flopping. We need we need to change the direction. We need somebody new in charge. So it's hard.
Why are you going to ruin my dreams?
I'm not trying to. I'm just saying like I wish that were the case, but I think you kind of can't. You got to walk before you can run, and you got to crawl before you can walk. And we got to like start crawling in that direction. And I do think a big part of that would be that if it's like. And it's MLS, so there's like weird rules that you can throw in there about like if it's a player who has between this and this many caps for the U.S. national team, and a club comes calling, then they're automatically allowed to like put in a transfer request.
That is how MLS would do it, right?
Yeah.
It would be some weird rule that like triggers a thing that automatically gets you released. I accidentally hit my mic when I said triggered, so I think that sounded good.
Yeah, see, that works. Yeah. So basically, Jermaine Jones is a genius.
But is that a small step that could happen? We could make Jermaine Jones head of this department, the department of Cross the Atlantic.
I'm not gonna lie, it did feel like he was sort of. This was the beginning of Jermaine Jones's either I'm going to be a media personality or I'm going to start maybe looking around for possible coaching opportunities.
I think he should have a department at MLS where he looks into European flights.
That's it. That's all he does all day. It's like when Tony Soprano actually goes to work at the sanitation company and just spends his entire day making an office pool. Like he's just drawing out a diagram. That's going to be with Jermaine Jones in there.
All right, so we've gone along on this. I think it's important stuff, though.
Yep.
And it's a thing I would like to see MLS at least move in the direction of. Are we, like, you with me on that?
Yeah, of course.
In some way? Yeah. And if Kellyn Acosta doesn't get to Europe by January, then we start panicking.
Yep. He
mentioned Kellyn, right? Several times he named the players who he think could play in Europe, kind of. He mentioned Kellyn Acosta.
He did. I also want to say, I do think that like it's a weird thing with Jermaine Jones because of like some of the stuff that's happened in the past with him, and he's been a little bit crazy at times, just getting like red cards here and there, and early in his career getting the yellow cards. That like, I also think that if this were Eric Winalda, we would be like, wow, Eric Winalda's out there, like that's big time stuff. And because it's Jermaine Jones, it sort of is like, that's a little crazy. Like I can see Jermaine Jones doing a 15-minute rant, but if it's Eric Winalda, we're all sort of like maybe more like programmed to think that that's normal. Same thing for Alexi Lalas. So I do like the idea.
He's emerging, right? He's emerging as a voice, which is really interesting.
I like that, and I'm okay with it because he's bringing up interesting ideas and calling people out.
This is the stuff that's happening, like with the US failing to qualify for the World Cup. Suddenly Taylor Twellman's angry, right?
Yep.
Suddenly, like Hurt Gomez is tweeting out Sunil out. Like people are sort of coming out of the shadows with like some strong opinions, right? Jermaine Jones is doing these long Instagram videos. There is a lot happening. There's a lot been shaken up by this.
Yeah, and honestly, so have we, or at least speaking for myself, so have I. Like, I don't know if I would have agreed with Jermaine Jones a week ago if the United States qualified for the World Cup and he said this. I'd be like, yeah, but we're still doing okay, and like we still got there. That's
what's been changed, right? Yeah. And we have to kind of accept that maybe we were wrong, thinking that we could be comfortable with so many players in Major League Soccer.
I think we do. But I think I would also extend it to sort of, because I found myself being frustrated with some people who were like writing glowing articles about Bruce Arena's ability to turn things around. And then as soon as the Trinidad result happened, it's been like, well, he's got to go and this is terrible and everything. Yeah. And like I found myself frustrated by that. But I also think that with the United States failing to qualify for a World Cup, it kind of opens the doors for like, I almost want to say, like, you wipe that slate clean. Maybe that's Don Garber's approach. It's like, you know what? We didn't make a World Cup. We got to change some stuff. Yeah. We're selling league now.
Right. We're going to stop trying to be the biggest league in the world in 20 years. We're going to start being a league that is realistic, sells players on, brings young players through, and the excitement of MLS is seeing those young players in action, right? Yeah. That could be, I would watch it more for that, I think, than having to wait 20 years for it to be the best league in the world. I mean, I might not be around for 20 years. You don't know. There's a lot of buses in Richmond.
And I would say, like, if you want to go with the ideal scenario, like, if it does become a league where you've got like these really talented and like technical 16, 17, 18-year-olds coming out,
Jesus Ferreira,
and they start to succeed, first of all, now you've got all the more people in Europe that you can be like, oh, how did he do this weekend? How did he do this weekend? But now I'm going to watch DC United because they've got this young kid, Chris Durkin, coming through. I want to watch him. Then Chris Durkin moves and another young kid comes through, but then European clubs start to look at Major League Soccer as an opportunity for that talent, and it kind of changes that dynamic, and you suddenly got more players playing in Major League Soccer and in Europe, and everything's wonderful. And also in Mexico as well.
Yes. Okay, let's end on that then. Well, okay, Jermaine Jones also played this weekend.
He did.
He played for the LA Galaxy, and he had a glorious assist, I want to say, to Romain Alessandrini.
It's glorious now? You were not so impressed by it.
I rethought it.
Okay.
Because he kind of, so it's LA's third goal. I've forgotten who they beat. Who did they beat?
It was Minnesota.
Jermaine Jones sort of, I think it was like they were defending a corner and it bounced and he sort of just like swiveled and hit a pass first time out to Alessandrini, set him free down the wing, 3-0.
Get him on that plane.
Get him on that. There's nowhere to go.
Really gonna work that
Plane's
way.
not going anywhere.
Hey, he's fit enough. He could be around for 2022.
Yeah, we're not thinking Jermaine Jones needs to be recalled to the US national team, right? But at least he was, at least he performed after that rant, right? Yes. It would have been bad if he'd had that whole thing and then gone out and had a terrible game.
Whiffs on a wide open goal. Yeah, not great.
So I've got some MLS thumbs up, thumbs down.
That works for
me.
And
my first one is thumbs up to Brad Guzan for celebrating a save. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, I do.
It's a New York Red Bulls 0, Atlanta United 0. There's a great, I think it's Sasha Kleshner puts a ball across the 6-yard box. Bradley Wright-Phillips steps into it, thinks he's got a goal, basically. He's 1-on-1 with Guzan. Guzan stretches out right in front of him. This is like as close as you and I are now, right? Makes a save. I think it ends up going over.
Yep.
And then Guzan just like runs around a 6-yard box, fist pumping, because he knows it's a great save and an important save. And I just kind of love it.
And it was some great commentary as well, because it was all about like the strong hand of Brad Guzan able to deny the shot from Bradley Wright-Phillips. And you watch the replay and you realize Bradley Wright-Phillips pretty much hit it in the worst possible spot. He could have hit it with not that much power. And the commentator like amended it to like, you do have to ask questions, but in the end, it's an amazing save from Brad Guzan. And I think that's the takeaway from that one.
I've got a second thumbs up from this game.
I wonder who it could possibly be.
It's Tyler Adams.
Of course it is.
So if you watch,
Adams.
It's like in the last minute or so, Tyler Adams does a 1-2 from the right, gets a bit more central. Then another 1-2, works it towards the box. Then he slips it to Varane, runs for the next 1-2, and Varane shoots and ruins the whole thing. That's kind of what happened, right? I'm not exaggerating. Right? Nope. Tyler Adams was on the end of it. It should have been a 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, beats Brad Guzan. That's how that should have gone.
It should have. Yeah. I'm not sure if he was open anymore, but yes, I think that would have been the more appropriate ending for that one.
But it was just a nice reminder of what Tyler Adams can do and the way he moved, the way he sort of received a couple of those balls. It was good stuff from Tyler Adams.
It was. It was also good stuff from Seattle. They defeated FC Dallas 4-0. They reminded everybody that they're capable of scoring many, many goals. And I think the person who maybe should remember that the most is Javier Morales. I'm saying thumbs down to Javier Morales for doing silly things at silly moments.
I'm saying thumbs up to his confidence in his own back heels.
Goodness gracious. It's still 0-0 at this point. It's Lodero tries to play a ball in. It's deflected and it's up in the air. And Morales tries to be cute, and about 40 yards from his own goal, he goes for a back heel.
In the midair?
Which would, if it had worked, it would have been good, but it did not work.
He was finding Mauro Diaz, I believe, which is always a good idea, right?
That is true. Instead, he kind of whiffs it, kind of hits it into himself.
He hit his butt.
It falls immediately to Clint Dempsey, who plays it in, and it's a goal, and that's that.
It's the Rodriguez goal.
It is indeed.
Sorry, Morales. I know he's like a storied player, but that was the wrong place. That's the classic, like, wrong place, Javier.
Yeah.
Don't do that in the defensive third.
Especially because for Seattle, it's obviously a good win, 3 points as you push into the playoffs.
Yep.
For FC Dallas, now outside of the playoff.
Not permanently, right? Don't they have a chance on the final day?
Yes.
I think, so good luck to them, but I'm not sure they deserve to get in the way they've played for the last few months.
No, I mean, it's going to be tough.
Let's get Kelly into Europe faster.
But they basically they lost control of they lost control of their destiny, because right now they have the same number of points as San Jose, but the tiebreaker, the first tiebreaker, is games 1.
I always forget that when I look at the MLS table.
San Jose have 12, FC Dallas have 10. So basically Dallas have to hope San Jose draws or loses, and then FC Dallas have to win.
Okay.
So lots to play for both of those teams on the final day.
Final day of the regular season is next weekend, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Anything else from you?
Yeah, absolutely. We never talk about them. We hear about it a lot, but we should probably talk about Chicago, because it's a Nikolic hat trick, and it's a Brandon Vincent brace? Assist brace is what we're calling it.
So 5 thumbs up.
I think so. Chicago's 3-2 victory over Philadelphia, which was especially impressive because Chicago go up 1-0, Philly pull 2 back, it's 2-1, and then Chicago say no. And it's Nikolic just kind of being a very good striker, which is an obvious thing to say, but he makes smart runs, he makes smart passes, he gets on the end of balls, and he finishes well. When he gets an opportunity, he takes it, and that's what you want.
He profited from some not great defending from
true.
Philly's number 3, who I think we found out was English, so I'm a little...
You're not going to say his name. Jack Elliott is his name.
Yeah. So the first goal, the first Nikolic goal, it's Brandon Vincent gets the assist, and we're all about Brandon Vincent maybe being a potential US left back.
Keep playing balls like this.
But he really just bangs a ball down the channel, right?
Amazing, perfect.
Elliott should have dealt with it, but he lets it bounce over and past him, and Nikolic runs on the end of it.
And he knows it's his fault, because at the end of the goal, as Nikolic runs off to celebrate, he just puts his hand in his hands and just stands there.
Yeah.
And all I can figure is that he doesn't realize Nikolic is right behind him, because he really does. Instead of trying to meet it and knock it out, and he could have knocked it out of bounds or headed it back into play, he lets it run past him, and I think it's because he doesn't know anyone's there, and he thinks, I'll just let it run, then I'll knock it back to the keeper, he'll boot it long, we're good to go. Oh no, there's a player there, and I'm in trouble.
Nikolic says no. Doesn't he also give away the penalty?
He does.
That Nikolic scores. The third goal for Chicago, I actually don't know the order of the goals, I'm not sure. Brandon Vincent assist to Nikolic. It is my favourite type of goal. It's get to the end line, cut it back. So it's not a cross from Vincent, it's a cut back directly to Nikolic's feet.
And you're correct.
Love it.
That is the third goal.
It's the winner.
And you know who else loved it was Nikolic, because he does the point. He points at Brandon Vincent as they're celebrating.
Oh, just like Manchester City.
He's got two people mobbing him, exactly just like it. Two players mobbing him, he still finds a way to point to Brandon Vincent. But I want to say, because I know it sounded really obvious and silly, I want to say it again. What I'm trying to get at with Nikolic is that his form this season has been sort of, if you give him an opportunity, he's going to take it. He doesn't need 7 chances to get on the end of get on the end of one, get his name on the score sheet. If you give him one in traffic from outside the 18, he'll at least put it on frame and put it in a dangerous spot, and that's exactly what he did 3 times.
That's why he's going to win the Golden Boot. I think he has 24 goals now.
Yes, something like that. 24, something up there. It's very high.
All right, one more week of MLS next weekend. I got to be honest, I kind of watched MLS with a bit of a stink eye this weekend, because it was not just because of the Jermaine Jones thing, just because it was the whole US soccer malaise is what I'm going to call it.
Correct.
But there was a championship game in American soccer.
There was.
The NWSL Championship was won by the Portland Thorns. They beat North Carolina Courage 1-0 in the championship game. I want to say, thumbs down to savage tackling from Tobin Heath and the rest of the Portland Thorns, but thumbs up for savage finishing from Lindsey Horan. Merciless.
Which one should we start with?
Counts. Let's start with the fouling.
Sure.
The endless fouling.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and it starts in the 2nd minute, I believe, with Taylor Smith just getting crushed by Tobin Heath.
Yeah.
And it's strange to me, because I feel like when I see Tobin Heath play both for club and country, it tends to be her who's just getting kicked and fouled.
Right? She's the crushy, not the crusher.
Yeah, and to be fair, she got a couple bad tackles. Committed on her.
Mm-hmm.
But in this one, I mean, I don't know what she's doing. She grabs Taylor Smith, she fouls her from behind. It absolutely should have been a yellow card. For the second one of the 30.
Well, and not long later, Taylor Smith comes out, right? She has to come out in the 12th minute with what looks like some sort of shoulder problem. Yeah. That's how bad the tackle was.
Yeah. And then you've got
Christian Hamilton
coming off in the 39th minute, again for a collision with Tobin Heath. I'm going to say this one wasn't necessarily her fault, because she was basically opening her body up to kind of let it roll across her and go the other way.
I think this was just an example of Tobin Heath being really, really strong. Weirdly, she doesn't look like a strong player, right? She doesn't look like somebody's going to knock you over, but this was, she sort of planted her feet, and I think she was trying to roll Hamilton in a way to then turn away with the ball. But then she was just so strong that Hamilton ended up, it looked like pulling her groin.
I'm going to say, I know she prefers Tobinho, but I'm going to say...
isn't it?
Tobinho, that would make more sense. I'm going to say in this situation it was more like Mickey, the bare-knuckle boxer from Snatch, where it's just sort of kind of whip it frame. You don't expect much, but then one punch, that's all it takes. And again, in this situation,
is that the Brad Pitt character?
Yes, it was not a vicious foul at all for the Kristen Hamilton one. It's basically just kind of a collision. It's what happens in soccer.
But then, if you're North Carolina Courage, you've burned 2 subs in the first 39 minutes.
I think they were pretty frustrated, because I would say that foul on Taylor Smith is a yellow card, and it does feel like that situation in which it's 2 minutes in, referee doesn't want Danielle Chesky, I believe it was.
Yeah, because she referees return kickers quite often here, right? So we're kind of familiar with it.
I think she just didn't want to dish out a card that early, but I think it should have been, and I think so did the North Carolina Courage players and coaches, because I think then there's more contact, more fouls from Tobin Heath, and I think they were thinking maybe you should try to police this a bit more so we don't have to burn 2 subs in the first half.
Yep. And then in the second half, I believe the 50th minute, Lindsey Horan absolutely bangs home the winner. So it's a deep free kick from Emily Sonnet, right? She takes it from midfield, I think, lifts it, I want to say long into the box. Not Ali Long, she was on the bench. She lifts it long into the box. And I think Dahlkamper goes up to defend it for North Carolina, but doesn't get a proper contact on it. And it kind of bounces through to Lindsey Horan, who's just sort of kind of surprised that it comes, but I think quickly reacts, quickly gets the correct body shape, and then slams it hard.
Yep. Yeah, and I think Dahlkamper, she jumps forward, she doesn't make clean contact. It might even go off of her arm, but if you don't know, that little bit of a touch, even on a big header booted long, if you just get a little bit of a flick, it changes the direction.
Yes.
And I think that little tiny bit of contact completely throws off a lot of different players.
Yeah. Oh, Hinkle, number 15, Hinkle probably could have blocked that coming through, but I think that slight change in direction had her, she really spins around trying to touch it and misses it completely.
She sets up to basically chest it and then clear it, but because of that little deflection, it's just an inch away from where she expects it to be, but that's enough to cause a serious problem, and in the end, cause a serious problem for North Carolina Courage as they're 1-0 down.
1-0 Lindsey Horan, and that's how it finished. So congrats to Portland Thorns winning the NWSL Championship. Do we feel weird about the way it was won with all the fouls?
I mean, I feel like that's kind of a championship game. It ends up being a battle. It ends up being a little bit of a slugfest. Mm-hmm. If it's pretty soccer, that's great. But I think a win is a win in the end, and that's what matters. Also, congrats to Lindsey Horan for, I believe, picking up MVP honors as well.
Oh, for the whole season or just for that game?
For that game, I think.
I see. That makes sense. Scored the winner, right?
Yeah.
All right. The other game we watched this weekend, not the final game, the penultimate game of today's show, is something I was kind of hyped about. Monterrey versus Pachuca. It was Saturday night. It was on ESPN Deportes, so it's on ESPN3, so we could watch it. In central midfield for Monterrey was 18-year-old Jonathan Gonzalez, who was born in the United States, has committed to the United States program, didn't sign for Chivas when they offered him a contract early on, which would have meant like you have to commit to the Mexican national team. So the future of the US midfield may be Jonathan Gonzalez, and we watched him play for Monterrey as they beat Pachuca 2-0.
And are you saying thumbs up or thumbs down for that one?
I'm saying thumbs up to Jonathan Gonzalez for a fine performance for Monterrey.
That's good, because I'm saying thumbs down to him for too fine of a performance. I don't like it. Because you say he's committed. He is still a dual national. He's played at youth level. So I think either wouldn't need to file the one-time switch, because I don't know if he's played in a competitive tournament with the youth team.
I don't think he has.
Or at the very least is eligible for a one-time switch. They are pushing very hard. The head coach of Monterrey is apparently speaking to the Mexican Federation on a regular basis, saying maybe you should be looking at him. And he is definitely justifying it to the extent he looked so good in this game that I did have a moment of like, he could maybe get a call up right now from Mexico. Oh no, I don't like this.
We're nervous, right? But what do we like about him? What do we hope we see? Maybe in a November friendly for the United States from Jonathan Gonzalez. What did we see?
I can tell you what we saw. I saw exactly what Jermaine Jones was talking about. That's why when you were talking about Europe earlier, I amended it to, at least challenge himself outside of the United States, because I think that's what Jonathan Gonzalez has done. And you look at just the little things that he did in this game, and I think it speaks to what Jermaine Jones was talking about, that players who go and push themselves learn how to play in a different way than players who stay in Major League Soccer.
Yeah.
And with Jonathan Gonzalez, yes, he makes like really good like hunting down tackles and hunting down men and like really putting people under pressure and causing problems, but it's also just his kind of off the ball as Pachuca were moving it from left to right, or they would win the ball back. He kept kind of just sliding over a couple yards or stepping back 2 feet or stepping forward 3 feet, and he just kept moving in ways that caused problems, because he'd take away a pass or take away a dribbling option or take away an outlet, and it just kept causing problems. You
pointed this out. It wasn't like he'd just go and stand next to his man and mark him, right? It would be very sort of, I want to call it dynamic, right? He'd be in that number 6 defensive midfield spot, in front of the defence centrally, but then shuffling left, right, stop, and Pachuca looked very frustrated by it. And then the other thing is he would just, at pace, because he looks very, very fast, go and close people down. And it looked like his job was just to go after the ball. Yeah. Right?
And forgive me, because I'm going to throw the Richmond Kickers under the bus here for a second. But we've seen them do this warm-up drill where it's basically you'll have two people who are like the theoretical attackers moving the ball. And if they move it to the left side, then it's like the right back in this little like quick warm-up drill has to step forward. The right center back steps forward a little bit too. Then it swings back. The right center back drift back. Left ones swing up.
Yeah.
And like that's almost like they're practicing doing that so they can get ready to do it in a game. Whereas Jonathan Gonzalez, I feel like he would even be like, no, that's too much. Like, you don't step that much. You slide over a little bit and you don't let that pass come across. But you also, like, he would kind of cover all of those, I feel like, based on the way he played this game.
But I did see him do that, but I also just saw him, like, go and get in people's faces. Like, he would just charge people down.
Yeah.
So he was, like, weirdly... I think I said on Twitter, he's positionally disciplined, like he stays in that defensive midfield spot. But imagine if, like, Kyle Beckerman had sort of 3 times the speed and was willing to just go and get in your face. That's kind of what he would do. He would just run and close people down.
And I really love the sequence where basically I think it's a long ball in for Keisuke Honda. He's running down his left side.
Plays for Pachuca.
Yeah, and Jonathan Gonzalez comes across and really closes a gap that he has no business closing. And at the end, he draws a foul because Honda pulls his jersey to try to like get him off balance, and that's enough for them to get a free kick. Like the closing speed, the awareness to make that run, but also to not concede a silly foul, which probably would have been a yellow card given the kind of break that was happening. And then in the end, have the wherewithal to draw a foul himself. That's pretty impressive.
And a reminder, he is 18 years old. And we haven't even talked about his ability on the ball. He still seemed really good at like shaking off a marker, finding some space, playing either the simple pass or the quite hard pass that split open the defense.
Either one. Because I think before they scored, you said like your 2 favorite moments were him just kind of turning and playing a ball out wide or turning and playing a ball down the line. And just that ability to like find that pass right away in like 1 or 2 seconds and deliver it as well. Again, very impressive.
All right, Jonah is the future, but we don't know which team for. We hope it's for the United States. Call him up in November.
I would like that.
Final game today.
There's also a decent chance, by the way, that he is just 100% committed to the United States, but we're all now
we're
so
just
terrified that it's like, oh, he could be.
Because he could be. He's 100% committed, but then Mexico are kind of just trying their best to get him to switch. Right?
Yeah, I mean, Croatia did the same thing with Pulisic.
Yeah,
so it's
Poland tried with Miazga as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Oh, you've calmed me down. Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right, final game is the Milan derby.
Well, final game for you. I've got 2 other games I want to talk about.
Oh, do you?
So, yes.
All right.
But we'll start with the Milan derby because I think you have to.
All right.
Inter with the win there, defeating Milan. Inter defeating AC Milan, if you want to go the technical ones. 3-2. And I want to say thumbs up for intentional, unintentional goals. So we watched all these goals together. We saw the highlights. And I felt like a lot of the goals in this game were like good goals, but I genuinely could not tell if they were intentionally good.
You're thinking specifically of Icardi, because those are the 2 you pointed out to me. Icardi gets a hat-trick, right? 1 penalty and 2 from open play.
Yes.
And he has 2 sort of... I think they're both volleyed finishes.
Yep.
And I'm convinced that he fully means it. He's just that good.
All right.
How about that?
The first one, it's a ball from Kondreva on the right wing. He plays it in. It is a beautiful, like, low but driven but bending. So you kind of like root the keeper to the ground because he doesn't know.
Out and back in.
Yeah, because he doesn't know if he can get to it, and he probably can't. So he ends up staying on his line, but it like goes right into that gap between the center backs and the goalkeeper.
Uh-huh.
And then Icardi is there, and he gets on the end of it, but it feels like the one that he should meet first time and just smash into the net. And I really can't tell if that's what he's trying to do and just mishits it. But he ends up just perfectly glancing it into the side netting.
That's why I think he means it, is because like the obvious thing is to smash it, but the very technical, clever thing is to just push it on into the side netting.
Yes. Yeah. So he gets the first one, and then it's a lovely goal from Suso, the AC Milan attacker.
Yep.
He basically cuts inside. It's a really nice overlapping run from Musacchio that creates that space. Lovely hit there, but again, it is sort of like he hits it low, and it's like, it's not when you expect a goal from 20 yards out, 25 yards out, you kind of have this idea it's going to be like cut inside and belt it into the top corner. The Arjen Robben goal is what I think of. And in this one, he cuts inside, but then he still like in-step places it and kind of bends it into traffic, through traffic, and around, and then it ends up going in the side netting. And again, I was like, I know you meant to shoot, but did you mean to hit it that perfectly, or were you just trying to put it on frame?
Is this something about Italian soccer, or is this something about this game?
I think it was just this game. I think it's because, the intensity of the Milan derby, that kind of adds a new level. But then even like the second goal for Inter, third goal of the entire game, was the Icardi flying volley that he does the ninja kick.
I thought this was perfectly deliberate.
See, that's what I'm saying. But again, if you hit this volley like dead on, you smash it, and he hits it with the outside of his foot and sends it like spinning into the side netting again. And maybe I am a big believer in like pattern means precedent, I guess. And in this situation, maybe that is just the case.
Correlation does imply causation?
Sure.
Yeah?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Why not? Causality in there too? Yeah. Either way, it's a comprehensive performance because, yes, in the end, he finishes the penalty as well. 3-2.
So, Icardi hat-trick and a derby win for Inter and Mauro Icardi. And he does the Leo Messi celebration, right? Doesn't he hold his own jersey up?
Premature is what I'm going to say there.
Why is that?
You maybe got to do a little bit more than that to claim yourself to be a rival to Leo Messi. Unless you're doing it ironically, and he was not doing it ironically. The other 2 things I wanted to get to. Number 1, Bobby Wood's Hamburg lost on the weekend. Bobby Wood not on the score sheet in a 3-2 loss. But I went back and looked. We looked at the highlights really quickly because I just wanted to know, again, is it him struggling? Is it him getting opportunities? The 2 goals they scored were a set piece and a penalty. So, again, it's not like he's getting numerous chances. It sort of is like he's in there, but maybe not getting much service. So I'm going to still say thumbs up to him for still going after it, buddy.
I'm going to follow up and say Weston McKennie, I think, still coming back from an injury, which he picked up. Actually, does this mean that he couldn't have played anyway for the United States in this international break? Because he got injured just before it anyway.
Look, I don't need your logic.
So he's not. He didn't play for Schalke, as I believe they won without him.
Yes, but I'm going to say big thumbs up to Matt Miazga. Because, again, has cemented that spot.
Vitesse.
There it is. They drew 1-1 with Heracles this weekend. So not great because, anytime you concede a goal if you're a center back. But the bigger news, which I don't know if you've seen, is that supposedly the rumor is that Ajax are very taken with Matt Miazga.
In Matthew Miazga?
And they, I think as early as January, might be putting in a bid.
They lost Davinson Sanchez, didn't they? So they've got a centre-back. I don't know if they bought anyone at the end of the window when they sold Sanchez. But so they might be shopping around.
But that's the rumor. So I want to say thumbs up to Matt Miazga for at least playing himself into contention, not just for like a starting gig at Vitesse, but potentially challenging for a starting gig at Ajax would be kind of a big deal.
Jermaine Jones would be proud.
He would, as are we at the Total Soccer Show.
Okay, there was much more soccer this weekend. We didn't watch it all, though.
We did not.
We only watched the games that we just talked about.
Yep. And even then, didn't watch all of them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, a lot of highlights in there. Okay, so should we move on to the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network?
We should, because it pertains to the things that we might be watching tomorrow. But before we get to that, we'll get to Matthew Cleveland's report. He's scouting Daniel Malen, the 18-year-old Dutch forward for PSV. Not PSG. I always want to say that. Malen came off the bench to score the second goal in the Netherlands U19's 3-0 win over Hungary in Euro qualifying. He's also been getting regular minutes for the PSV U21 team, but no goals as of yet. I hope that's like young PSV. That's what I want them to be called.
I think they usually are, right? James Jones is scouting Andrew Carleton, the 17-year-old American attacker for Atlanta United and the US U17s. James says Andrew has thus far started all 3 games for the USA at the U17 World Cup. Scored in the opener against India, we talked about it. Helped create the only goal against Ghana, we talked about that too. The USA, they also lost 3-1 to Colombia. I noticed that. That's not
right over that.
Yeah, skip right over that. So the US finished 3rd in their group. This is me talking now, not the report. They went through as one of the best 3rd-place teams. They also finished level on points with Colombia and Ghana, right? Everyone was on 6 points. US just had the worst goal difference. James says the USA will meet Paraguay on Monday in the knockout round, and you can bet that Carleton will be involved. That game is on Fox Sports 1 or 2.
I'm going to say 2.
Fox Sports 2, 10:30 a.m. kickoff on Monday morning.
Alrighty. So no more U17 reports? Just kidding. We've got 2 more. The Reverend Joel Tolbert scouting Chris Gosling, 17-year-old American attacking midfielder for Atlanta United. In that aforementioned game against Ghana, the 1-0 win for the U.S., Gosling received the ball from Chris Durkin, turned and played a beautiful ball through pass for Ayo Akinyola, which he converted to get the only goal of the game. Gosling also started and played all but the last few minutes in the 3-1 loss to Colombia. This morning is when Reverend Tolbert sent that one in.
Yeah, we focused hard on Chris Durkin's role in that goal, but yeah, Gosling was the sort of the connection between Durkin and Akinyola.
That'll work.
Up next, Zachary Becher is scouting Timothy Weah, 17-year-old American forward for PSG. Zachary says it's been, and for the US Under-17s, it's big week for the Weah family as George runs for president and Timothy heads to the World Cup knockout round. Tim has
First of all, not the first time he's run for president. Second of all, it is the first time that I think he is polling like as the favored candidate.
He lost to the lady the first time. I've forgotten her name. Yeah, he lost to...
you can't remember Liberian politics? Come on, Daryl.
He lost to Liberia's first ever female prime minister.
There we go.
Yeah. President, sorry. Timothy heads to the World Cup knockout round. Tim has failed to score in the tournament so far, but that hasn't hurt his confidence. In an interview last week, he indicated he wants to try to make it into the PSG first team by the end of either this season or next season. Dream big, Timothy. Jermaine Jones would be proud.
Jones would like that, exactly, yeah. Mason Kriz scouting Marco Farfan, 18-year-old American left back for Portland. Marco has been injured for the last few months, but did get 55 minutes in T2's recent 2-1 loss to San Antonio.
Judgment Day.
With only 2 games left in the regular MLS season, and Farfan still being injured/recovering, I doubt we will see him get any first-team minutes for the remainder of the year.
Michael Hastings-Black is scouting the aforementioned Paxton Pomykal, the 17-year-old American midfielder for FC Dallas.
Second usage of aforementioned in the scouting report, just saying.
The aforementioned word. Michael says
third use.
Paxton was with the US U18s. We forget there's a U18 team. It's not as sort of highly publicised. In Marbella, Spain, from October 1st to the 10th, playing in friendlies with Belgium, a 2-0 loss, and Russia, a 2-2 draw in which he was man of the match. Most notably, while in Spain, Paxton enlisted his teammates to help ask his girlfriend to homecoming in 6 different languages via Twitter. She said yes. I told you that he was creative.
Yes. Michael was also kind enough to include a link to that invitation.
Is that what my notes say? Adorable link in show notes, ?
Yes, I've added that as well. So yeah, I think we could probably add that one in too.
Yeah.
Why not? Keith Kalmbach up next, scouting Federico Suerve Valverde, 19-year-old Uruguayan central midfielder on loan at Deportivo La Coruña from Real Madrid. Suerve has started 3 straight games for Deportivo, 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss. His performances have been improving for Los Branquiazuis. That's not even close.
That sounds wrong, but okay.
Spanish for blue whites. Branquiazuis. Yeah, I'm going to say that. But he hasn't made the concrete impact that he will be needed to justify continued first-team selections. Keith also reports that he bought himself a pair of Pronto Knit Narrows from Greats.com.
Yay, thank you, Keith. Chris Bernhardt is scouting Tammy Abraham, the 20-year-old English striker on loan at Swansea from Chelsea. Chris says Abraham scored 2 goals at Saturday's 2-0 win for Swansea over Huddersfield, bringing his Premier League total to 4 this season following a breakout campaign in the Championship last year. Speaking of the Championship, I watched Wolves beat Villa 2-0 over the weekend. That's the other game that I watched.
And you were pleased?
I am. They're top of the league. My Wolves are top of the league.
I know you love Villa, so it's okay.
I love watching Villa lose.
You finally got a West Midlands derby. Is that nice?
Yeah, it's good to see. Yeah.
Just not in the Premier League.
Yeah, not in the Premier League. There's only West Brom. Yeah, there's only West Brom in the Premier League.
Until next season. When you give me whatever we bet, $5-10.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm willing to lose a bet that the bet is Wolves coming top of the league, by the way. All right, so thank you to Matthew James.
275 promotion is what we bet on.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Shot a hustle. Get out of here.
Thank you to Matthew, James, Joel, Zachary, Mason, Michael, Keith, and Chris for the scouting reports. We have had, Taylor, many people join the Scouting Network this week.
These are facts.
There were a lot of assignments to get to. I meant to do it Friday. I was doing my taxes instead, so I ran out of time. But thank you to everybody who signed up. We will get you your scouting reports. If you'd like to support the show...
It's everyone who just panicked, by the way. Daryl filed an extension. There are no taxes due in October this year. Yeah. Just want to throw that one out there in case anyone's like, Daryl, you are way off.
You're 6 months late. I bet you there's someone else listening who filed an extension.
Yeah. I mean, we know people who did that.
Right, okay.
So, yes.
If you would like to join and support the Total Soccer Show, the URL is totalsoccershow.com/join. And again, a very sincere thank you to everybody who signed up sort of after the US didn't make the World Cup and wanted to sort of help make sure that we were sort of not in too much trouble.
Yes, that was very much appreciated.
All right, Taylor Rockwell, anything else to add before we close this down?
Other than thank you to everyone for continuing to subscribe and for listening to us talk about lots of different soccer for over an hour yet again.
Oh, yeah. So we'll be back later.
Slightly less depressing than last week. So
yes, it is. Yes, it is. So we'll be back later this week with some Champions League review. I think it's Madrid Spurs this week. So we'll maybe get a look at that.
I'll watch that.
On Tuesday. We'll probably lean into some US topics again later on in the week, right? Because there's going to be news, right? There'll probably be the Tab Ramos announcement. I'm sure.
You just decided that that's happening?
I mean, pretty sure, right? They're definitely in negotiations.
Yeah.
Right? Basically, there wasn't an MLSsoccer.com story that was like...
Now's not the time for me to speculate or something like that.
I can't really talk about that.
I can't comment at this time, as I believe
which
what
means
he said.
I am in negotiations, right?
Yeah.
So we may have some news for you that we can talk about this week. Until then, Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, if you get a chance, watch the US Under-17s against Paraguay. It's the knockout rounds, 10:30 a.m. Monday morning. Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again later this week.